As you can see from my list, I've been really busy. And let's do another welder review. First impressions, this thing is actually quite compact and like pinky finger light. That's kind of nice. Bestarc is probably, well, best known for making affordable plasma cutters that actually work. And so it sort of seems like a natural progression to go from the cutting metal apart to the sticking it back together business. A common mistake I see new welders make when they're setting up their MIG welder is getting this little guy in the wrong hole. So if you're running gasless, you want electrode negative. So this little guy needs to go into the negative hole, because that attaches directly to your torch. So electrode negative for gasless, and then this one is attached to the return or your earth, and it needs to go into the positive. And if you're wanting to run solid MIG wire using a shielding gas, whether that be argon, CO2 blend, or straight CO2, you want this to be electrode positive. And I'm going to start this off with gas. So electrode positive, the return is in the negative, and that's now set up correctly. Under no circumstances ever press the red. Well, it looks like I'm just going to have to press the red button to find out what it does. It wasn't a self-destruct button. Yeah. Ooh, doggy. Oh dear. Perfect. That needs an O-ring. Don't judge me. Yeah, okay.
10mm might be a bit much for this.
I could hear your voices haunting me, and basically the test on the 10mm wasn't done properly because we didn't have bright, shiny, clean metal. So, here you go. I heard you. Not perfect, but as you can see, we have weld stuck on both sides. That means that the weld was the weakest point, not the lack of penetration. So, okay, 8mm. So this is a textbook example of cold lap. This is no fault of the welder. It just doesn't have enough power to bite deep down into the 10mm plate. So there you go. I just wanted to try it. I was kind of hopeful that maybe, you know, if I held my tongue in the right place, it might work. But at the end of the day, there's really no substitute for just more power. That weld is obviously bitten in. Yeah, and that's what should happen.
So as a sheet metal worker, the vertical down is my bread and butter. It's the quickest way to join two pieces of metal, keeping in mind though that you are limited to the thickness of the material that you can weld with vertical down. If you go above 3mm, you're going to come unstuck, unless you're a pipe welder, and then the rules don't apply to you. That is textbook penetration. The outside's a little bit rough. My form isn't as good as it used to be, but that would clean up really nicely.
Every stick welder has the potential to be a TIG welder. In this case, this one actually has a TIG setting, and I don't know what that means. I'm not sure if this is a lift TIG or a scratch TIG. We're going to find out. Being the more simple style of TIG, you will need a torch with a valve. This is how we're going to control the gas. Pretty primitive, but this is how most TIG welding was done back in the day, and is still even done today in the port. Anyway, this is how I started out. And it's not necessarily how I'd recommend you start out. A good high-frequency machine is always going to be better than this. But this has a lot of potential. And most of the nuclear power plants that have since now been decommissioned because of meltdowns were probably welded together with something like this. This is your basic setup. We've got our gas lens, our gas cup, collet, tungsten, and a gas cap. And there are lots of different flavors and styles, but the main thing is whatever style you get, just keep it all the same, because they're not all interchangeable. That just screws in. Probably something worth noting is that finger tight is heaps with these. The thread in there is very fine, and it's pretty easy to screw them up. Gas cap goes on. Really important to make sure that the gas cup seals nicely around this heat shield, this white plastic part, because if it's not doing that, it's just not going to work. You're going to have a bad day. Now your collet goes in the back. It's a 3.2mm to suit the 3.2mm tungsten. It goes all the way through. Just have it poking out the end. And finally the gas cap. The only thing to note here is make sure it's long enough for the tungsten you've got. You can get short ones, long ones. This is sort of a medium. And that the O-ring is in good condition. Now once this is together, and it's plugged into the machine, this is live. If I touch this against the table, I'm welding. So it's really nice to have a block of wood to put this on, or just work out some kind of a system that can isolate this from the bench. Unlike other TIG welders where you press a button and then it starts electricity through the whole system, this is live. Treat it like a loaded gun. So the weld started off sort of a bit rocky. The amperage was a bit cold. I was running about 65 amps, but as the heat built up in the part, and about this point that happened, things really just came sweet, and as you can see, it's really not that bad. The thing with scratch TIG though is finishing, and that's, you've got to snap out, and that leaves the last bit of your weld unprotected. So I sort of went off the part onto here and snapped out there, just to try and keep and maintain the nice color that I knew I was creating. But yeah, definitely TIG welds. Lift TIG is nice and still has a place out there in society. If you're doing repairs on vehicles with sensitive electronics, lift TIG is better than high frequency start, because the high frequency start really has that big snap, which can do damage to sensitive electrical stuff, where lift arc has none of that. So when I do repairs on packing machines or the stuff that I do for a day job, if I have the choice, I'll always use a scratch start or a lift TIG, particularly if it's an unknown thing where it might be like hypersensitive to voltage spikes. A bit of an odd job making a propeller that'll go in a mixing tank. I'm going too fast. I managed to find the correct adapter to get this DINS plugged down to the smaller size. But if for whatever reason you already had a TIG torch and it was the wrong size, you can simply just buy one of these. So stick welding is the final thing we want to do, and instead of just welding some random scraps together, I've actually got a bit of a project that I want to do. I'm building a hot water tank stand. I want a more permanent setup for when I'm testing the different rigs that I make, so that I can just get a really good baseline. And the little 80 litre tank that I currently have is just a bit on the small side, and it's kind of shot. So this new tank that I've just got, it's 200 litres, and so that's sort of a more standard size tank. Anyway, all that aside, I'm going to build a stand for that now, just out of random offcuts and scrap that I have laying around. These are 6013 rods, 2.4 millimeter. Not that I'm like the ultimate test, really, but you know, if you're not willing to put your life on the line with what you just welded, you're not living. A cheese?
Cheese.
Oh, you and your cheese. So my final thoughts, it's pretty good. I've been trying to think of who this welder would best suit. Like every product, it's aimed at a particular market. I could see this being a really good beginner's welder, particularly with the synergic MIG welding settings, where you're basically the whole learning process of understanding how the wire speed and the amperages, how you've got to get those two balanced to get a good result. That's basically taken care of with this machine. The only caveat that I can see, the one maybe negative thing with this machine is it would be kind of like learning to drive in an automatic car. It's really easy and convenient, but you may never progress to stick shift, if you know what I mean. But I guess for most people who aren't going to make a profession out of welding, that probably doesn't matter. It is a good machine. It stick welds really easily. It lights up those rods just beautifully. Bestarc has a pretty good reputation for making quality gear, so I really can't foresee any problems with this machine, though I will continue to use it and test it. I like doing these reviews, but I also like to keep using the product afterwards to see, you know, how it goes. It's sort of hard to get a feel for something only using it a couple of times. I like to, for me, the review's still going. I'll keep using this machine, and if anything happens, I'll let you know. But otherwise, yeah, you know, for weekend stuff, building a go-kart, fixing a fence, a mower deck, light work, be really great for car panels and things because it's just sort of set up for that sort of light work. I think this would be a great machine. The stick welding gives it sort of that heavier capacity. Stick welding is a bit of a learning curve, but it's a learning curve worth going through. Once you can do it, you know, you won't regret it. And TIG, you know, lift TIG is a huge step above scratch TIG, but not as good as high frequency start. Would you buy this to TIG weld? No, I don't think you would. Having the capacity to do it is great. And so if you wanted to get into welding and you wanted all of the three processes, MIG, stick, TIG, if you want all three processes to learn on, you could do it with this machine, for sure. I'd have to say that learning to TIG weld with scratch or even lift arc is, it's not as nice as learning with a high frequency machine. It's just easier. You're not sort of potentially damaging the tungsten every time you start the weld. But anyway, that aside, I like it. I think it might find its way into my service truck and become a more permanent part of the team, if you know what I mean. So thank you very much for watching. Oh, and I've been using the plasma cutter a fair bit, and I'm just going to show you some footage of that now because, yeah, like I say, when I get a product to review, the tests continue, and every opportunity I get to use it, I will, and it's a good machine too. I basically used that thing until the consumables were spraying out the end like liquid metal, which I shouldn't do. But I pushed it pretty hard, and it just functioned great. I was constantly checking the temperature of the leads and things because my Aldi machine, I've actually melted the plug out of the back of that. So obviously the thermal overload on that is set too high, and I've literally melted the leads on the back. So that's been retired, and the Bestarc plasma cutter has taken its place. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. how obvious it is. But basically everywhere that the original plate was welded on, we've cracked right through. And basically this piece is compromised. My original plan was to have this piece of plate locking up under there. I was going to fully weld that on and then weld on our hanging bracket, mounting plate, whatever they're called. But I don't think I can do that now. I could weld that up, but I'm welding it onto something that's proven itself to not be strong enough in the first place, so I think this all just has to go now. Anyway, so I might still be able to use this, or I might just put it aside and we'll just start again. But one way or the other, this has to be, this can't be used now. So I've finally got all that off, and now I can get access to these welds here. But yeah, I've had to unpick this the way that I have just to do minimal damage to the frame. I'm just trying to save myself a bit of work. And yeah, just got to arc gouge these off. Well, I wish I had an arc gouge, but anyway, use the plasma cutter like an arc gouge. Get that out of there, and we'll have one side cleaned up, and then the process will repeat itself. Hooray! It's quick. That's how you do it. Starting to get the hang of this arc gouging stuff. Realizing that if I move pretty quick, sort of, even though I was afraid I'd be gouging into the RHS where I didn't want to cut. If I move quick enough, the arc sort of curves out and just sculpts away this material, and I just keep doing that until it exposes the joint between the two pieces. So it's coming along quicker now. And this plasma cutter is no joke. I mean, like for a budget plasma cutter, and it hasn't overheated. It's doing a fantastic job. This thing is legit. Anyway, yeah, this is a good test. If it was going to fail, it would have failed by now. My Aldi's plasma cutter, I would have to stop after half an hour of work and let the thing cool down, not because it would trip out, but because the lead would get so hot, it would start melting. So I had to keep an eye on that, where I'm keeping an eye on the lead, I'm keeping an eye on this, and it's doing a good job. Yeah. So the welding procedure, providing this fits, is I'm going to weld on the inside, along the bottom and along the top, and that's going to preheat this materials, and then I'll do some vertical ups on the inside and do that weld and that weld, and then that'll be nice and hot. And I'll adjust the settings for an outside one, and I'll come up the outside. And hopefully it won't look like a dog's breakfast, because I'm a little bit rusty with vertical ups.
I guess you could call this a 2-for-1 video. I didn't want to waste all this footage, and I figured the best thing to do was to throw them all together. I hope you don't mind. Anyway, catch you in the next one, guys.